It's called An Audience with the King, this chapter. I'm just going to read a very brief extract. For most men, it was the raw material of pulse-quickening fantasy. But these auditions had, by the closing months of 1960, become little more than a tiresome ritual for the man sitting near the stage that morning at the Raymond Revue Bar, the upmarket strip club he'd opened just over 2 years earlier. Destined to establish himself as one of the world's wealthiest people, his face familiar to British newspaper readers, the man in question was a 35-year-old northerner who changed his name to Paul Raymond, a durable memento of his abortive stage career. His sharp suit, cut in the continental style, worn by Marcello Mastroianni in the previous year's hit movie La Dolce Vita, contributed to an impression of well-groomed prosperity and suave self-assurance. Such was his fastidious poise, you could almost have been persuaded that he also shared the Italian actor's dark good looks. Instead, he possessed the long, clean-shaven, pallid features of a medieval effigy. Any fleeting associations with the frigid hush of some bucolic parish church, however, dispelled by the cigarette between his lips and the sight of his receding, wavy brown hair, which he oiled into a crisply parted quiff, resembling the spirals of whipped cream piped onto the dessert served in the fashionable restaurant downstairs. Recurrent doses of cod liver oil and malt extract had failed to vanquish his unhealthy facial puffiness. Smoke rings spooled above Raymond as his doleful, dog-at-the-dinner-table eyes scrutinised the hesitant young girl who had ventured onto the otherwise empty stage. It extended 15 feet into the terraced auditorium around which tables and chairs had been arranged. Those seats would soon be filled by the usual attentive, smartly dressed crowd. Film producers, businessmen, aristocrats, politicians, singers, gangsters, barristers, movie stars, quaffing overpriced drinks while they watched the show. Well, this extract describes a fantastically kitsch flat Paul Raymond owned in the mid-1970s. It's a real treat, and in fact, it explains who designed the interior of this flat, which will probably come as no surprise to you when you hear what it was like. And this really is a sort of pimp-like flat. Fitzhardinge House, a 1960s block on the corner of Baker Street and Portman Square, provided the otherworldly setting for Raymond's louche ménage. At this stage, just a quick aside, he was living with his girlfriend, who was at that stage incredibly famous, Fiona Richmond, and his daughter, Debbie, on whom he doted, and vice versa. She had moved in, so it's this strange trio living there. And Fiona Richmond, for those of you who don't remember her or are too young to remember her, she was billed as a porn star, but I think it was pushing it to call her that. She appeared in terrible British sex movies, softcore sex movies and comedies, amazingly successful, and she was in hit West End stage shows that Raymond put on, like Pyjama Tops, which was packing them in for the best part of a decade. And she was a rather stylish and witty woman. Now, routinely compared to a film set, the sort of place designed for the megalomaniac villain in a James Bond movie, their 7th floor flat was entered via a private lift which carried them from the communal foyer and car park below. Visitors to the flat, large enough to accommodate or to include accommodation for a live-in housekeeper, were always struck by the 30-foot-long lounge, scene of many lavish parties, its chill prickle of air conditioning offering what was something of a novelty in those days. But the air conditioning was the least unusual aspect of the room's blousy opulence. It had a ceiling encrusted with chunkily menacing mirrored pyramids that reflected a jagged futurist's eye vision of the room below, the thick blue carpets, the white leather upholstery, the ultra-modern television projection screen, the sliding blue wall panels, the adjoining patio, bordered on 3 sides by the penthouse. Ex-Beatle Ringo Starr and his girlfriend Robin Cruikshank, partners in a design firm called ROR, had been hired by Raymond to design the patio, now usable throughout the year. Above an illuminated fountain, the submerged lights from which could pulsate in time to music. There was an enormous glass and aluminium domed roof that retracted like the cover of a missile silo when a button was pressed. Hope you're all picking up interior design tips here. One Sunday morning, Baker Street had to be closed to traffic while a crane lifted the structure into position. Even more electrical gadgetry was in evidence in the bedroom shared by Raymond and his girlfriend. Reclining on the 7-foot by 7-foot bed, less a king-size bed than a kingdom in its own right, they were within reach of a control panel that looked as if it belonged on an airliner. One of the buttons switched the lights on and off, another drew the leopard skin print curtains, another matched the walls, another opened and closed the wardrobe door, another summoned the housekeeper, who kept all three of the flat's residents supplied with freshly laundered clothes and food from Harrods, Selfridges and equally expensive shops. Another caused the panel at the foot of the bed to slide back, revealing a huge television, and yet another operated the mirrored canopy above the bed. Press that button and the canopy, forthright token of virility and kinkiness, made way for a concealed sunray lamp, regular use of which had given Raymond a fashionable tan, his skin grilled to the colour of caramel. So satisfied was Raymond with ROR's work on the penthouse that he commissioned them to redesign the interior of the boat he'd just bought. He and Richmond had seen us at the boat show and placed an order immediately. The vessel, which cost £50,000, was a powerful 48-foot-long, flat-bottomed river and coastal cruiser. It had an interior which he hated, its walls and floors sheathed in turquoise plastic. At Ringo Starr's suggestion, the plastic made way for a blue carpet, featuring a different coloured stripe in each cabin. Richmond talked her boyfriend into naming the boat Getamorph in Latin. Her mother, who worked as a teacher at a convent school, ended up persuading the nuns to provide a translation.
Classy.